Hello, everyone. Welcome to Arash's World. Today we have a special guest, Joy Fitzgerald. Welcome.
I am so delighted to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And so, what I'd like to start off with is a brief description of yourself. How would you describe yourself here to our audience?
Wow, I would describe myself as a consummate ideator. I'm someone who loves to always be thinking of new things, new ways to improve, connect, and engage with people. So that would probably be the first word. The second word I would use to describe myself is an advocate. I believe in helping to be a bridge and build bridges for individuals who are underserved, underrepresented, and maybe even disproportionately advancing across the world today.
Oh, what a beautiful introduction. And so today we're going to talk about your book, Finding Authentic Rhythm, How to Win on Your Terms in Corporate America. And so there already in the title, there are certain things I really like. I like authentic. I like rhythm. So that kind of involves also a certain kind of like flow as well as dance and
Mhm.
your terms, right? So kind
Yes.
of negotiating and settling also in different ways than just accepting the status quo and trying to change things too and being yourself. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about your book.
Yes. Well, the book for me is a passion, and right now it's kind of my new baby, my new child, because it's something I'm certainly very, very much connected to in many different regards. It's really about me wanting to share many of the lessons learned. I've created a number of tools and I guess you would say methodologies to help people think differently about how we approach one of the most important things in our lives outside of our family, and that's our career journey, where we spend majority of our time on any given day, the people we work with, and how we are approaching the mindset of working in whether it's a for-profit, nonprofit, or entrepreneurial effort. So this book is me sharing many of the mistakes that I made, talking about many vulnerable experiences in hopes that it would help others to approach their career journey and even life better prepared than I felt I was.
And I think one of the things is many people don't feel connected to their work, don't feel connected to their careers, or they don't feel that they are appreciated in that place, the workplace, or even within the career. So, what would you recommend? What could we do in that situation? What's actually amiss? What's wrong in many of those
Yeah.
cases?
Well, I will tell you a couple of things. One, I don't know about you, but growing up, I was always very envious of people who had the perfect answer when anyone asked them, what do you want to do when you grow up? What's your path or plan for 5 years? I never really had an answer that was my answer. The answer that I gave in many cases were the answers that my parents taught me, or that friend said, "Oh, you're good at this, you're great at that." But I never really did the self work to think about my purpose, what I wanted to do, how I wanted to contribute my talents, my energy, and my experiences in time to my career. So that would be one thing. I think it's important for everyone to start with asking yourself, what is your purpose? Why are you in the role or the career you are in today? And
I
if
think
that answer isn't uniquely yours,
Mhm.
then you really have to walk through the book to figure out and go through the steps to go through that self-discovery period and process to come up with your purpose.
But the problem is often we're discouraged from
Correct.
those
Correct.
friends, from the
Mhm.
parents, where we say, I want to do this. They say, have you really thought about it? Or you maybe not
Yes.
very good at that. And that creates that self-doubt that we continue on with into our adult life as well.
Yes. And I talk about that in the book. I talk about the difference between a dream builder,
Mhm.
a dream weaver, and actually someone who discourages and kills dreams. Many of us aren't in the careers or weren't, I wasn't in the career that I really absolutely should have been in because I listened to non-doers.
Mhm.
And most of the time, we go to individuals for information without making sure that they're qualified to help advise us or direct us. So I advise individuals in the book to think about reaching out to people who have achieved what you're looking to achieve in life. Individuals who have a track record that can help lend credibility, but also get involved and help support you in whatever it is you're trying to attain.
And I think a lot of times what resonates with you, and when we do that, when we do things that we enjoy, that
Mm-hmm.
we like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just so much easier. And our concept also of work is something that I have to do to pay the bills and all that. And
Correct.
I think there is like the mindset already. We start off wrong on
We
this
do.
path. And so that change, we can actually enjoy what we're doing, make money and pay the bills and do it with a smile, but we don't see it that way often.
And some of that is generational. If you think about it, if you can compare every generation, at least the last 5 or 6 that have been in the workforce, and I can tell you in Generation X, for me, very much when I was growing up, you got the advice that you were looking for a career that had stability. It was almost never talked about passion. What is passion? No, you get a job to make good money, to pay bills, feed yourself, pay the rent, those retire, those type of things. And no one really, for me, and certainly for many that I coached, gave us that advice to think bigger and to dream big. And now when I look at my young adult children and we talk about careers, it is very much a different context and conversation. It's not about going and having a role relative to just income and financial outputs. They want both. And I love that. And that's the encouragement I talk about in this book, how to have both. That's the your terms piece,
Mhm,
that
mhm.
you get to have ownership and accountability for taking stock in what you contribute to the world.
And but what about all these voices? So how can we deal with them, especially not just parents, but friends, but also society itself might say like, okay, you're a woman and this job might not be good for you in engineering and stuff. So how can we counteract that and just make sure that our terms are really respected and appreciated enough?
At first, you're so correct. And I think it first begins with who you share your dreams and aspirations with and to. I will give you one experience when in the workplace, I often would ask my leader or boss, what do you think my next role should be? What do you think I would be good at? And I put so much stock and energy in their answer. And if their answer wasn't what I liked, I would feel rejected, dejected, and it didn't land well. And I learned that we need to reverse that frame of mindset. And instead of asking our leaders, we should spend the intentional time figuring out what we want to do, what we want to accomplish. So, really around our purpose. But the second piece is the why. And then when you're having conversations with your mentors, sponsors, leaders within the organization, when you exude a certain amount of confidence in what you're trying to do, but also your goals are realistic, and they're smart goals, you will find, and it's been my experience in most cases, people will get energized and on board with helping you and be more supportive. But if we're purely coming in asking, and we have to be careful again who we ask, I think in many cases we will not truly live out our dreams, or we won't really be doing the work that we were designed and authored to do in the world.
Yeah, one of the issues though, and one of the difficulties I think is when you say about being authentic. When we look around in society, often we're not in our personal lives,
Right.
we're not authentic, and sometimes that seems to be the situation, kind of necessary in certain times because, or we think we don't want to hurt other people and so on. But then the same happens at work, and if you cannot be
Mhm.
fully authentic or be vulnerable or show yourself, because then you're afraid that will have repercussions. So how can we
Absolutely.
negotiate between those two things, what you truly feel and how you're supposed to appear? There's a
You
conflict
know,
there also.
You're absolutely, spot on in many cases. And I found, and I would venture to think this may be the story of many people who will have an opportunity to read the book, is that you think you are showing up authentic.
Mhm.
You think you are happy,
Mhm.
but in most cases, you're unfulfilled
Mhm.
and you are pretending and masking the true version of who you are for fear of judgment, not being accepted, or the implications that it could have on your career journey, or even aspirations or mobility. And for me, I didn't even know it. I thought I was good, but I wasn't good. And I didn't know that I wasn't truly being my authentic self until someone actually saw me and told me. And the words that they used were life changing. And, someone who's a life coach literally looked me in the eyes in a work setting. She was there to speak and said, stop apologizing
Mhm.
when the mere essence of who you are intimidates others. That's their issue, not yours.
Mhm.
There is an environment, and every work environment, every role, every culture is not for everyone. And that's okay. That's the beauty of discovery and trying new things. If being exactly who you are is not welcomed in the environments in which you are in, the power is, how do you either do one or two things? Influence it so that others can see their ability and impact on you. Number two, share your truth in a way that allows others to see you. Or three, leave. But
Mhm.
all of those options give you power and give you actions to influence the environment you're in so that others too can feel safe being their authentic selves.
And that power we have, but we don't notice it. We don't see it. We often feel stuck, but in many cases, we're not stuck. And actually, in almost all cases, we're not stuck. We have
Correct.
options in front of us. And so, as you say, if you don't like it, leave. If it makes you unhappy, find something else. And that is something that's always there, but we don't perceive it because we feel dragged down by
Yes.
our current situation, by worries, by unfounded fears often. And so, and also of being liked and being accepted. And that's why we conform so much. But in
Mhm.
that negotiation, we're losing the true part that is ourselves. And I like the idea that you're talking about the mask. Absolutely. I think
Yes.
we all are wearing these masks, and we're wearing it because we're afraid. It's out of fear
Yes.
that we do that.
It's fear. And the second piece to that, you just hit on it very beautifully, rejection.
Mhm.
Part of human nature, we look for connections or the ability to have relationships. And the core word in relationships is the ability to relate.
Mhm.
And the more we feel comfortable relating, the more we feel like there's shared connections and synergies with others, but the more different we feel than others, and sometimes and in some cases, it could feel wrong, like something's wrong with you, that your difference isn't valued, it's not acknowledged, or it's not welcomed. And those are the hard challenges we have. But one of the things that I talk about in the book, it's a kind of a questionnaire to help people do that self-discovery and go through that process to think about and truly say, am I showing up as my authentic self? But the second piece to that, what is the gift we give to others and the permission we give to others? When we are authentic, it makes it so much more easier for the next person to be authentic.
Mhm.
And when we see others with their mask and operating in a place of fear, how do we help? And how do we show more inclusion? That's the journey I think we should all be on in whatever community or organization we're in.
Mhm. I love the self-discovery, and I think it's really continuous at like any age. It's like new things that you discover, and be open to that and explore it
Mhm.
and say, okay, this is something I hadn't thought about. And I think what the pandemic also kind of forced us to a standstill. So because we had a bit more time, we didn't have to commute. Some of us didn't have jobs and so on. We thought more about it, and then we switched careers, and we see that
Yes.
that's going on, and that's a good thing. I applaud that in many ways.
There certainly was a lot for us to feel sad about as it
Mhm,
relates to the pandemic. So many lives lost, so many
mhm,
businesses, individuals lost roles, women in the workplace, you name it. It just had so many impacts. But there were a number of revelations
mhm,
and good things that came
mhm,
out of this. And I think it forced, and I can tell you for me, it forced a greater degree of self reflection and self discovery about how I even show up even more because we had to be authentic in a different way. Our hairdressers, all of those things were shut down. We were home, we were in our personal environments. People got to see us remove different masks.
mhm,
and
mhm.
I don't know about you, but everyone that I interacted with and worked with, it brought more authentic and deeper connections and relationships. And we got to know each other from different vantage points. And it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it's amazing also with like contacts with friends and family members. I mean, people would
Mhm.
say, yeah, you'd occasionally see them, but when it turned to online communication, it became suddenly more intimate and more frequent and easier. And so it didn't feel like a chore in many cases. And I think that's kind of ironic because we say technology is distancing us. At the same time, we can also use it to connect more and, for example, have this podcast from different places,
Yes,
something that didn't exist before. So, and social media as well. We often see the negative side, but I look at the positive side as
I
well.
do
People
too.
opened up, and once you do that, once you're being authentic and vulnerable and so on, it again it has repercussions on others, and they open up in turn, and they don't feel isolated. It's like I thought I was the only one that was feeling this. So
Yeah.
I think there's this wonderful opportunity that that has come about, and that we have in many cases taken advantage of.
And a couple of other things. I will tell you, it helped us connect differently with our family
Mhm,
because it forced my grandmother to learn how to use FaceTime and
mhm,
video, those things. She never had a value proposition to do it. But then we all began, even from a generational standpoint, we had to learn new skills.
mhm,
In some cases, it even made the work environment more inclusive
mhm,
because through technology, you have tools where you can raise your hand. Uh, and think about it, just in a meeting where everyone is physically located, it's sometimes hard for some people to interrupt the dialogue and be heard. But now you have a tool to where you can silently raise your hand and people could know that you want to be heard. You have something you want to say. So it was a lot of positive things that has come out of technology and our new way of working.
Yeah, I'm an instructor and I'm in education and have been doing it for a couple of decades now. And when the shift happened, right at the beginning,
Mhm.
at the onset of the pandemic, I was strongly against moving classes online because I thought it can't be done, it's not good, it's not the same with teaching, and I was wrong. And but it's kind of that opening up to it. It's like I
Yeah.
felt like it won't be possible. I won't be good enough to use the
Mhm.
technology because I'm from a different generation and all that, but it worked out fine. And I think that kind of
Absolutely.
openness of I actually, in many cases, prefer it more. I still like both, but I think
Mhm.
it has other things that are good and beneficial too. And as you're saying, that whole it opens up many spaces that you didn't have,
Mhm.
and you can present and share your screen and technology, and people
Yeah.
are connecting from their homes, so they're more authentic. It's not just in
Yes.
this artificial classroom, so you get it becomes more personal that way as well.
I think you're correct. And it allowed us, even being in a person's home having a discussion,
Mhm,
there is something relative to your subconscious that brings a different level of authenticity when I'm able to meet you in an environment that I feel safe in an environment that feels loving and that I'm comfortable in, it impacts how I show up. So, so many good things that has come out of our new way of connecting.
Now, I'm also curious what was your motivation behind your book? What started it? And you talked
Oh,
about some letdowns, your passion, and so on. So, yeah, what was the source here? What made you write your book?
well, let me tell you a funny story that didn't go the way I thought it would go, but absolutely was meant to be. I've always wanted to write a book. The first book I wrote, it was more of a family memoir around 5 generations of women in my family. And it was safe because I was able to do that with others. I didn't feel like I was stepping out on my own and as vulnerable. But about a year ago, I was attending a Women of Power conference, and this conference is primarily dedicated to women of color. And a large degree, it's held by Black Enterprise for Black women. And I was at the conference, I was on a panel, and my daughter was there. I had a lot of my colleagues from my current organization and previous organization in the audience. It was just phenomenal environment to be in. And I had finished, my segment within the panel, and they had opened the floor for questions. And a young lady stood up and said, "You mentioned a model called SIS, SIS. You got this. Where can I learn more about that model?" And I promise you, I had never thought of this and never said these words in my life before. But authentically and naturally, I responded by saying, "You'll have to purchase my new book coming out later this year. And get this," I said, "it's called Finding Your Authentic Rhythm." Now, I had never said this before. And the women in the audience went to yelling, "Yes, ah!" And then I thought in my mind, "Oh crap, what did I just do? What did I just say?" And again, my daughter was in the audience, and immediately when that session was over, she was like, "Mom, I don't know where that came from, but I think your souls actually spoke what you know you need to be doing and what the universe needed to hear. Now get to writing." And that's how the journey began.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And those are the moments we should really cherish and appreciate, and that guide us, I think,
Mhm.
when we are trapped in that negative outlook, or that we're
Mhm.
stuck, we can't advance, we miss out on all those signs and signals that are there and
Yeah.
coincidences that are happening. And that moment brought about this book, and your passion shines through it too, and your experience as well. I mean, you have 25 years of leadership experience, so you are talking about things that you know about as well.
Yeah. It's been a amazing journey, and what I hope people will hear, it's scary for me too. I have real fears, but writing this book, going through this journey makes me more emboldened to show people the beauty of what opening a dream looks like.
Mhm,
It's not easy, but it's so worth it. And be clear of what success looks like for you. Define success on your terms.
mhm,
You know, put goals that anchor around things that are meaningful to you. And that gives you joy. So when the hard days come, when you're up all night trying to accomplish these things, you have the energy to do it because the work is worth it for you. When you haven't done that self-discovery and you're doing it for others and not for yourself, that's when we give up. That's when we stop these New Year resolutions. These
mhm,
things
mhm.
sound amazing,
Yeah,
but if we're honest, we're really not passionate about it.
yeah.
It just looks good on paper. But again, if there's nothing else I want people to hear, do the self-discovery work. The answers that you will learn about yourself and the direction that it will give you to course correct whatever stage or age you are in life,
Mhm.
I promise you, it's worth the journey.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that it's difficult, it's hard, but it's so much worth it. And once
Yes, it is.
once you've gone through it, as somebody who has experienced that, and I look back, I said it was so worth it. I do it all over again. And
Yes,
so I think that's something that we're often like trying to be realistic, and that's good. I mean, we do want to be realistic, but I think we also want to be aware of limitations. And
correct.
so if your a realistic outlook is limited, try to push a bit beyond that, not too much, but
Yes,
just add an extra zero to your salary that you're imagining. It might come true, and not limiting yourself in ways, but also again, not being all again with New Year's resolutions, we're not being often realistic, and we expect too much, and then we get
we do.
frustrated and
And
we
and
stop.
and the, and to some degree, we don't really surround ourselves with a really good team of people who will provide the sage wisdom advice,
Mhm,
but also help us to understand if this is feasible. And we need people in our life that will hold us accountable,
mhm,
that won't, I don't know about you, but any goal I've ever had in life, I have only been able to accomplish those things when I had a really good accountability partner. Someone that on those tough days, or even if it was going to the gym, if I had a partner, I was more likely to go than if it was solely left upon me getting up and going. And even in writing this book and going through this process, I'm very grateful for the team that I've surrounded myself with. And I talk about in the book how to create a board of directors, how to create a team of individuals, and what the composition of the team should look like, and even the mindset, because a lot of it starts with our mind. And we really need positive people to surround us,
mhm,
who are also practical and will
mhm.
be honest with us as we go through the process of attaining our goals.
And try to kind of also like we cannot please everyone, even within
No,
our own network where you have a
right.
family and maybe
Mhm.
sometimes the spouse, and there's sometimes you have to go your own path and
Yeah.
feel okay about that in certain situations again. And I think that's important, because one thing I've always thought about is like I want everyone to like me, but then that's not a realistic outlook again. So we want to say it's okay if they don't, and it's not something that really reflects badly on me. It's just there's a difference there, and that's fine. And to accept that it's not going to be easy and not everyone will be on board, but
Mm.
the people who matter, as you're saying here, your close network, they
Yes,
need to be on board, and then it's perfect. You're fine. You can't please everyone.
absolutely. And
Yeah,
that was one of the mistakes that I made,
yeah,
thinking everyone would like me.
yeah.
The first leader job I had, I thought that was success. I thought that was the goal. And you'll find that that's not realistic.
Mhm,
It's not always the case, which if you are really grounded in your purpose and your why, you also need to know your why. That's the second chapter in the book. When you by the lack of connections with others, or that someone doesn't like you or believe in what you're trying to achieve, it will force you or cause you to go off path.
mhm,
But when you've done that work and those things happen, you may stumble a minute, because we all are human and we have emotions, but you'll get right back at it and get right back on course, because you'll know for every one person that doesn't like what you're doing or saying or trying to contribute, you'll have 5 or 10 or 20 that will.
mhm,
And that's where you need to put your energy.
mhm. And that's what matters exactly.
And that's what
Those are
matters.
the ones who matter.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, perfect. And so what would be some tips you would give to corporate America? I mean, we talked about like to our audience and how connecting with this of being authentic, but for corporate America, what are some things advice you would give them?
One piece of advice I would give to corporate America: when you're looking at attracting talent inside of your organization, and you hire an individual into the company, that individual comes with a unique set of skills, experiences, talent, but you're also getting an individual that brings a culture with just within who they are as a human being. Leverage them and allow them to integrate into your organization. Don't ask them to change. Every piece and part of who they are has the propensity and the ability to help your company become more innovative, have higher performance, and better understand their customers. Because believe you me, that individual is representative of the population you're either trying to sell something to or serve. I want to be able to integrate and not assimilate. When you ask employees to assimilate, you may be asking them to fundamentally change who they are. And that's not the gift. And that's not what people are looking to contribute when they join their company. So that would be my advice.
I very much like that. I see that many companies are set in their mission and their views and their purpose, and that's good to be determined. But sometimes they're too much, they're too determined, or they're set and they're rigid. And so we saw that with the pandemic too, where it's like, this is how we do things. And then the pandemic said, no, that's not how you're doing things, because you won't be successful if you stick to the old ways of doing things. So I think there's an openness that is necessary. And I think every individual adds to it with their own experience, their own culture, their knowledge. And I see it like a soup, because that's the spices that add flavor to it. It might
Yes.
change the whole flavor of it for the better, but be open to that. I think that would something I would add to
Yeah,
talk
the
about corporate
openness is,
America.
very important. And my piece of advice to individuals, because I recognize
Mm-hmm.
that being authentic is a lifelong process and journey, because we will change over time.
Mm-hmm.
And it requires a great deal of courage
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to be
Absolutely.
different, particularly if you don't fit societal norms or even environmental norms within your organization. But I made a promise to myself, and I hope people will listen to this. If I win in life, I want to win on my terms. If I lose, I want to lose being me,
Mm-hmm.
because then it was worth the loss. Because I know wherever I was or whatever I was doing, it wasn't for me. But it's so much harder when you lose and you didn't lose being who you were, because you were trying to be what everyone else thought you should be. That's a much harder loss.
And in a way, it's a win-win situation in that
Yes,
case.
it
When you're
is.
yourself, you cannot lose.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Joy Fitzgerald, you're a life coach, author, corporate leader. You're also a devoted mother and wife, and that's
Yes.
really important as well, that personal aspect of it. And you're a chief diversity, equity, and inclusion officer as well. And your book is called Finding Authentic Rhythm: How to Win on Your Terms in Corporate America. You've been designated a rising star. People have said you're a rising star in different organizations, as well by Diversity Journal. You've been called Woman Worth Watching, and I can only say definitely true. Definitely a
Oh,
woman worth
that is
watching
so
and a
kind of
rising star.
you. I'm humbled to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being on the Rash's Wolf and talking to and giving your wonderful views and insights here and sharing it with our audience.
Well, it has been a pleasure to me, and I think the work you're doing certainly is a gift to society as well. And I would just welcome anyone, if you're interested in learning more about me or hearing more of my journey, you can find me anywhere at Speaking Joy, speakingjoy.com. I'd love for you to get connected as we grow in our authentic rhythm together.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.